Good day everyone, and welcome to my guide on the Warlord. In this guide, I will be discussing how to optimally use his tools and the feats and perks you'll want to pick. Now, while this is a 4v4 guide, most of this guide will be coming from a Dominion perspective. However, I will also be making note of Breach as well. Unfortunately, the other 4v4 modes are a bit too dead to receive coverage, but I will be willing to answer questions in the comment section about them. Lastly, all of the footage is on console because all of my good shit is there. But this guide is definitely applicable to PC as well. I brainstormed this script with several competitive PC players to ensure that this guide is valid, and I will have the viability tables from Reddit in the description for reference as well. With that out of the way, let's get started. Warlord fits the role of a point guard. A point guard usually stays near a zone while also assessing his teammates within his territory. For example, on Citadel Gate, I may stay close to A or C, but will travel to B to support my teammates, or the opposite zone if my own zone is contested by several people, or if my team desperately needs me on that zone. In regards to boosting, it's not the end-all be-all of Warlord. Just sitting on a zone the entire game is not productive, especially considering that your team is down a player. In fact, maintaining the mid lane actually nets you more points than boosting. So when do you boost? Either when your team controls all zones, when a zone has 3 or more enemies on it, or when you believe that people will flee to that zone to heal. If you find yourself taking on the entire team, focus on staying alive. Don't attack unless it's quick. Even in Revenge, one mistake can get you stun locked until you're dead. The longer you stall, the less teammates the enemy has to intercept your own. You'll want to try and do most of your 1vx fighting on a zone, since we'll be running Bastion. Not only that, defending a zone as a heavy is a great way to boost your renown, netting you feats like Punch Through and Fire Flash to make you even more deadly. In regards to the mid lane, Warlord has a decent time cleaning thanks to his zone. This makes him a decent swap if your teammate needs to heal, however your participation down there shouldn't last too long, but long enough for your minions to take the zone. Also, be watchful of the radar. It'd be very disadvantageous if you went OOS, just to spot 2 enemies coming your way. Now then, let's talk about his offensive capabilities. Crashing Charge is serviceable. It can remove someone from a team fight, ledge, and create subs for your team. It can be used to plow through traps, and it makes him 7% faster. Problem is that the hitbox is wonky, and the move costs a lot of stamina on a whiff. You'll also likely get grabbed if they dodge, and without a wall, this move doesn't confirm anything. It's not as good as Raider Stampede Charge, but it's a nice tool to play with, and an explosive way to make it entrance. I'd be tarred and feathered if I made a Warlord guide without mentioning his throw. Wall splats and ledges come easily, and you can force someone into a 1v1 scenario. And if you're running Bear Trap, you get even more mileage out of this move. This is easily one of the best throws in the game, and also why Warlord is often referred to as the Ledge Lord. Headbutt is alright. It opens people up, it can create setups, it interrupts throws and attacks, and it has a quick startup. On the other hand, it's short-ranged, gets you grabbed on a whiff, and feeds 30 revenge to the opponent. I would only use this move in a team fight if your other allies lack some sort of opener. Otherwise, stick to throwing out heavies enhanced with Punch Through, or wait to grab and throw the bastard off the cliff. In the end, it's a fine move, just like Crashing Charge, just be mindful when you use it. Warlord's Zone is without a doubt his best move. It's undodgeable, it has a wide arc, it moves him forward, and it has low recovery. In ganks, you can effectively poke enemies out of attacks and split recovery frames. As an anti-gank tool, this move can easily hit multiple foes, making it relatively safe to use in a gank. And, as stated before, it's also nifty for clearing B. Be mindful that this move is 600 milliseconds, so it getting parried is a concern. Fortunately, zone attacks don't lose extra stamina when parried, unlike normal attacks, so don't be afraid to throw it out here and there. Just watch out for heroes with FBS stances, or else your zone might get you flipped or slapped with a mace. Head Splitter is a very situational move. The only reason to use this move is if you need the distance, you lack the stamina for the zone, or when you're certain that it's going to hit. Otherwise, you will get parried. By console players, might I add. And before you say anything, headbutt is not confirmed. It can be dodged, and you will get grabbed. It may work versus newer players, but it's suicidal versus anyone who's knowledgeable. So I'd recommend mixing it up with zone as another follow-up. This mix-up offers the move some merit on wall splat over side heavy, but head splitter plus zone eats a shit ton of stamina. Be very careful when going for this move. Now for his heavies. They are slow, yes, but have hyper armor and do respectable damage. This allows you to punish those pesky external attackers via target switching. Another thing to note is that the finishers will beat all deflect attempts as well, but always throw top heavies in the neutral. They are faster than the side heavies, and you'll be less likely to eat shit like I did throughout this video. Before we talk about his defensive options, I want to discuss the Warlord's top light. It's garbage. It's 100 milliseconds slower than his side lights and only nets you 3 more damage. Even when they're confirmed, there are better options. I know that I throw several of them throughout the video, but it's not wise, it's unsafe, and it's a bad habit I am currently trying to break. Unless you enjoy eating light parry punishes, try not to use this move. Warlord has superior lights that net 25 damage. They're alright. Unlike heavy parries, you don't need to burn 60 stamina, and it acts as a chain starter. What you can also do is utilize an external attack thrown at you to trigger the move. Of course, I'm too bad to get good footage of it. Just be wary of light parries when going for this move. Warlord's shield counter is best used when you lack the stamina for a zone on parry punish. 80 stamina damage is very significant, especially since this confirms a light. This is a pretty neat anti-gank tool since the OOS will get an attacker off of you, and the animation is quick enough to allow you to block external attacks. Though zone after parry is usually the better option if you have the stamina. FBS is what I like to call a high-risk, medium-reward maneuver. It has nice startup, you can attack or dodge out of it, you get a good amount of revenge when it blocks multiple attacks, and that light will stab external attackers. This is good for those situations where one of your attackers is in critical health, but spams back roll the second you lock onto them. In regards to the heavy, this move is primarily confirmed on heavy attacks. This move is amazing for punishing attacks like Kensei's dodge heavy, and might hit other enemies nearby. The stance can also punish attacks not directly targeting you, hence my warning about using the zone earlier. Now, what makes this high risk is that the move loses to unblockables and guard breaks, and the attacks can be parried, especially FBS heavy. Be very careful when using this move, especially in ganks. Now, on to the feats. In Tier 1, the optimal feat is Rush. It patches Warlord's average speed, has a great cooldown, and can allow Warlord to not only better support his team, but also escape. Yes, Speed Revive can turn the tide of a team fight, but it's rather situational compared to Rush. Mobility is one of the strongest assets a hero can have, especially a heavy. And Deadly? That garbage is worse than Speed Revive. You shouldn't ever be attacking that much to utilize the measly 3-second boost. Every time I catch someone running Deadly on my team, I lose brain cells, and judging by the footage in this video, I probably don't have many left. Please, just use Rush. In Tier 2, you'll really appreciate Bear Trap. It bolsters Warlord's zone defense, knocking anyone OOS while dealing 25 damage. But it's not locked to just zone defense. Place one of these down in a team fight and suddenly there's an environmental. At best, this nets a ledge or a knockdown, and at worst, it gimps you because an enemy triggered it while you were on top of it. That happens more than you think, by the way. To top it off, its cooldown is pretty good for what the feat does. Compared to it, the other feats are meh at best. However, traps are actually banned in official tournaments, so I will also recommend Juggernaut. It's best used to stall and can make you untouchable in a team fight thanks to the damage reduction and hyper armor. It does seal running, however, so be very careful where you proc this or people will just back away. And Flesh Wound is deadly for defense. Good Warlords don't get hit that much. Please, don't run this feat either. So, Bear Trap for casual play, and Juggernaut for competitive play. In Tier 3, you'll want Punch Through. It allows Warlord to have more options than the risky Headbutt for dealing with turtles. Dealing 8 to 19 damage on blocked attacks is nothing to scoff at, and even if it doesn't kill, it whittles down the opponent to the point where Headbutt plus Light will. Yes, Bulk Up and Tough as Nails nets Warlord 177 HP, but you could survive just fine without it. And Fury is not that stellar either. When I see someone pop this, my plan is to turtle until the lackluster duration wears off. The sprint speed and damage reduction can ensure escapes, but why not just use Rush, a tier 1 feat with a much better cooldown? In conclusion, Punch Through is the way to go. And finally, his best 4th tier feat is Fire Flask. It's one of the most versatile feats in the game. It can clear mid lanes, control the battlefield, turn the tide of a team fight, or just kill that one Lawbringer. As long as an enemy's sudden doubt isn't around, the feat is great just about anywhere. Auto Revive sounds good, but it has way too many limitations and doesn't work if your team is breaking. And the cooldown is abysmal if you get it to proc. And Regenerate is just shit. It doesn't work if you are running, climbing, jumping, or guarding. Even in Breach, you're better off just using Rush to get you to the healing point. And the health recovery is garbage for a tier 4 feat. Just run the Flask and everything will be okay. Now for the perks. Like Feats, Warlord's perk setup is very straightforward. Bastion is a free plus 10% damage resistance on zones, where most fights will be taking place, especially in Breach. Vengeful Barrier is, well, Vengeful Barrier. It increases Warlord's Revenge Shield from 70 to 100 for free. The last perk is up to player preference. I and many others would recommend Shields Up. It's a modest boost to survivability that appears upon spawn and revival. Fresh Focus is always good to have if you fear going OOS, especially against Jormungandr, Gladiator, and maybe Sent after his rework. If you're running with Black Prior, Aegis might be useful thanks to his feats giving teammates shields, but otherwise it's poopy. Everything else is either too situational or just not good in comparison to the others. So, Vengeful Barrier, Bastion, and one of the 3 I suggested. Easy peasy. As a bonus, I will be discussing the best executions to give Warlord. Obviously, you'll want the fastest ones. Head Scissor is his fastest, heals you for 20 HP, and is one of his default executions. Warlord's Viking's Elbow is a tad slower, but heals 50 HP. Feel free to pick what you'd like for the other 2, and remember that executions increase the time your opponent's team is down a member. Longer executions such as Nailed Down are very beneficial if you know that you won't be interrupted. Thank you all for watching this guide. It was fun learning more about my favorite hero, and it was also a rewarding experience to me as a player. I do apologize if the footage wasn't the best. This is my first experience doing something like this, and I have a bit of stage fright. If you have any criticisms that you are able to give me, feel free to do so in the comments section. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter to keep up with my future projects and post what heroes you would like a guide on in the future. Until then, have a nice day.
2, 3, 4. Into a shining dawn, see the darkness of man. I'll never be a pawn to a fickle lord's plans. You start the attacks and we pick up your slack, and we'll never be back where we began.